so this is South by Southwest Interactive, and this is an interactive session. So I'm glad we kicked this off with at least discussion of cocaine. Whether you brought your own or not, I would recommend you keep that to yourself. But everything else, this is all about generating conversation, opinions. This is a provocative topic, as we've had some pre-discussion, but that's what this is all about. We'll keep it civil, but let's have a good, healthy discussion, even perhaps an argument on this healthy and productive. I'll introduce the topic with just a couple of slides here, but this isn't a lecture. This is really a conversation. Maybe the title itself gives it away entirely, but I think there's a little bit deeper there, and I think that we can have a conversation about what this actually means and what the implications are, in fact. Fingerprints are usernames, not passwords. My name's Dustin Kirkland. I work for Canonical. We're the company behind Ubuntu, the operating system. I've been doing that for about 7 years. I've been in the Linux space for about a little more than 15 years now. In particular, I'm the co-author and maintainer of an open source project called II Crypt FS. II Crypt FS is an encrypted file system built directly into the Linux kernel. I work on the user space side of that, but I have a partner who works on the kernel side of things. An encrypted file system is what allows you to read and write data that gets encrypted before it lands on disk, but you see the data just like you'd see any other file or directory. In particular, II Crypt FS is used by Ubuntu. Ubuntu Desktop is shown here. You may be familiar with Ubuntu Server, Ubuntu on the phone, Ubuntu on the Internet of Things type devices. We run Ubuntu everywhere, and eCrypt FS is available everywhere. It's just maybe desktop is what's immediately familiar. You can actually encrypt your desktop in Ubuntu clicking one checkbox. One checkbox at installation time. You say, I want to encrypt my home directory, and then anything you read and write to or from your home directory is encrypted before it lands on disk. And you don't need to know anything about encryption. You're prompted to write down or save or print out the passphrase in case you ever need to recover it under certain circumstances. But for the most part, anyone who can run a graphical desktop can encrypt their data. We've been doing this since 2008, which predates our concern about encryption in South by Southwest. I've been coming to South by for 15 years, and security and privacy is a relatively recent discussion that we're interested in having here, and I'm delighted to see that. But we've been doing that for a very long time, long before the Snowden leaks, before Mac had the file vault, before Windows 8 put file encryption into the Windows kernel. We've been doing that for a very long time. In fact, on August 7th, 2008, I was asked by a user in IRC to add support for fingerprint readers in the authentication module for eCrypt FS. That user didn't file the bug. I filed it on his behalf, marked it wish list, and said, hey, we'll have a talk about this. But yeah, you know what? I've got, not on this ThinkPad, but on a previous ThinkPad, I've got a fingerprint reader. I'll take a look at that, right? And as most open source projects are, I'm overloaded with bugs. A couple of months later, I come back and I really thought about it, and I talked to some of the best security professionals I knew in the industry. This is February 20th, 2009. And actually, I closed the bug won't fix and said, look, we've had a discussion. We're not going to add support to PAM eCrypt FS to use your fingerprint as a password. In fact, the prevailing opinion at the time was that fingerprints would not be good passwords. Maybe we could use them as a username, right? So this really isn't a new concept, at least the title of this talk. This is something that at least we decided in 2009. This is a fantastic presentation. If you really want to go through 25 slides of just real geekery, how to hack biometrics, this PACSEC presentation from 2006, Hacking Fingerprint Recognition Systems, has brilliant 25 slides on how to recover fingerprints from everything, including a mouse, to a beer bottle, to the top of a laptop. Ways of reproducing that fingerprint. This is a gummy bear, which is one way that they fooled a fingerprint reader. As simple as that, not having to have a latex printer or something like that. This is a gummy bear that you feed your kids, right? And it's really, at least in 2006, really was that simple. So I'm not going to plagiarize their entire presentation. You can go and read that, but 25 awesome slides later, their conclusions were that your fingerprints are left basically everywhere. They're easy to collect, easy to reproduce, and easy to to fool. If you're going to use them, you need a fallback password, and this was 2006. So this is almost 10 years later. You think we might have learned something, right? But 7 years later, we really haven't learned. In fact, the most popular phone in the world just put out this thing in front of a lot of people, some technologists, some non-technologists, saying, "Hey, use your fingerprint for the password on your phone." And it was at that point that I just lost faith in our ability to actually make smart security decisions as an industry. So that's better technology compared to 2007. We're talking about millions of times more resolution in its ability to read a fingerprint. You think, oh, well, that one must be safe. It must be foolproof. And in fact, the Chaos Computer Club tricked it within days of it coming out. And again, this is another presentation that I'm not going to plagiarize, but you can go to YouTube and watch this 5-minute video as to how a high school student, could reproduce and actually defeat let's call it the world's best consumer-grade fingerprint reader. All right, so fine, fingerprints. This is about biometrics, right? Fingerprints are really just one representation of biometrics. What about iris scanning? Surely that's harder to fool or fake. Actually, with the Canon SLR that I'm sure many of you have and shoot pictures of your kids with, you can take good enough pictures of an iris to fool almost any practical iris scanner today. Voice recognition, right? Surely that's harder to reproduce. We've got incredible resolution microphones that can pick up all of the little nuances in your voice. Have you ever called into a data center and said, "This call may be recorded for quality purposes"? Your voice print is everywhere. You've left your voice print all over the place. That's really not. There's nothing private about voice, your own voice. It is yours, but it's not private. It's easy to reproduce, and you could very easily be tricked into saying the magic word over one of these telephone support systems, right? If you were the target of that sort of thing. DNA, surely DNA, right? Millions and millions and billions of bits of uniqueness that is you, in fact, right? How many people are in from out of town? You're sent out of a hotel room? Your DNA is everywhere. You leave a disgusting trail of DNA everywhere you go. And, that from that perspective, your DNA is not secret. It's missing many of the core tenets that make a good password. Okay? So, we should debate this point, or we can debate this point in just a second, but I'm arguing that biometrics themselves are not secret. Your voice is everywhere, your DNA is everywhere, your eyeballs are easy to scan and take a picture of. Fingerprints are certainly everywhere. And then we can extend that to other forms of facial recognition. Facebook, please, you put pictures of yourself on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and they're associated with you and your identity. Your biometrics are not secret. That's, I think, the core premise to at least the argument that I would make. You can challenge that in a second. Moreover, I'm sure you've seen a few of these. I pulled this out of my Google Mail. This one happened to be December 13th, 2010, and this was when Gawker and Lifehacker and Deadspin and the back-end system for their commenting had been compromised, and they weren't sure about how deep the hackers had gone, but they recommend that you try to change your password. And I got one for myself in PlayStation. Surely you've gotten one of these emails, right, where hey, you need to change your password, and you kind of sigh and go, another one of these, geez, all right, why does this happen? How would you change these? Right? If your password was a piece of you, right? Your fingerprints, your eyeball, your DNA, your voice, could you even change that? And that's a real core problem, is that passwords have to be something that you can rotate, you can change, you can modify over time. Biometrics are missing, again, that core piece from my perspective. All right, what do these have in common? We've got a tanning bed, we've got leaded gasoline, Clippy, a shake weight, new Coke, subprime mortgages, the Hindenburg. What do these have in common? Failures, toxic. Excuse me? Okay. You might say glorious failures, right? All of these are, I guess tanning beds are still used, but, wow. Really? Glorious failures might be one way of describing it. Actually, there's good ideas in almost every single one of these, right? Being able to put a giant balloon in the air and move people from A to B. Filling it with hydrogen might have been a bad idea, but ultraviolet light has many practical applications that we use every single day, but like laying inches from the equivalent of the bad light that comes from the sun seems like a bad idea. Clippy is annoying as hell, but I mean, think about the artificial intelligence that goes into, hey, I think you're trying to do this, but the better way to do it is that. It's just, if you're going to annoy someone into doing it the right way, it's probably not the right approach. A focus on fitness is certainly not a bad idea. The shake weight is really probably just, I don't know, nothing to say about that. So that's important, is that there exists technology behind these. Some are good ideas. Subprime mortgages is a terrible way of getting money or helping people buy houses, right? I mean, helping people who well, anyway. Moving on. So can we avoid adding biometrics to that list, the list on this page? Does the fingerprint reader and the iris scanner become just another awful idea? Or is there a practical application? Can we use this in a positive way? So what are fingerprints and biometrics good for? I'm going to pause here. I've got a few slides with my ideas, but we've been doing this. I think I've spent 10 minutes or so setting up the problem. Let's get some thoughts. Anyone on the, hey, you're an idiot and biometrics are passwords, and I'm going to storm out of this room right now unless you accept that. Anyone want to take that position? And that could be a lot of fun.
I think some of the biometric issues that you brought up, like iris scanning, facial recognition, there are additional factors you can add for is this live versus a picture.
Mm-hmm. So, just about that, isn't the central premise the three tenets of multi-factor authentication? Something you know, something you have, something you are.
Right.
So isn't inherently the nature of a password having multiple, like you need all those components to have anything. You can't have any one.
Right.
So this is a component, but by itself it's insufficient.
I think that's really insightful, and I think those two work well together. One thing I heard is that adaptive technology can make these better, right? A still frame of an iris isn't as good as being able to track it and moving and adding a couple of blinks. That makes it a little bit harder to defeat with a static picture. The same thing with I don't know, there are adaptive ways of doing things. So I think that's what I heard is adaptive, right?
Yeah.
Dynamic, adaptive. And then multi-factor is extremely insightful as well. Multi-factor, something you have, something you know, something that you are. Which of these is a fingerprint? Is it something you have, something you know, or something that you are? Something that you are.
Because I think something that you have is something that's inherently replaceable, but distinct from you. So you possess the fingerprint, but you
right.
can't replace it.
Exactly. So it can't be the thing that you have. Although that in English that doesn't work. Yeah, you have fingerprints, but from the security definition of multi-factor authentication, biometrics could be something that you are, right? Something that you have or something that you know? Probably not. The problem with something you know is that other people know your fingerprints. And know in the sense of it's easy to pull it off of something like this, a smooth surface. Your face, your voice, your eyes are something someone else knows about you. So it's not something that only you know, right?
So can I just ask why are and have? I understand having something that you know being distinct, it's changeable, but why would you want to have both something that you have and something that you are?
So the combination of all three of those is the definition of multi-factor authentication. And in the world of hypersecurity, getting into the vault at the Federal Reserve or something like that, combining as many of those as possible is current best practice to creating a hard-to-defeat authentication system. So
right, but I can go 5 things, 6 things.
Absolutely.
Right?
The more the better. I mean, the more secure, absolutely.
Well, then you reach a point of diminishing return.
There's absolutely a spectrum where usability is on one end and security is on the other end, and you have to figure out where on that spectrum you want your authentication system to lie.
Right, so I'm trying to understand where the benefit comes. Something that I know, okay, great, that's changeable.
Sure.
something that I have or something that I am seems to be a substitute for this is me.
Yes.
So what's the distinction between those? Why is having two of those?
Fantastic. Identity versus authentication.
Okay.
That's the core answer to your question. What's the difference between something I have, something I am, something I know? Identity is who are you, right? I could ask, what's your name?
Mike.
Mike. You're Mike. Your identity is Mike. Mike plus a middle name and a last name, and that is a unique you. Prove to me that you're Mike.
Okay. So I can do fingerprints, iris scan, DNA.
So that's more. I'm Mike.
So
I'm Mike.
why is
So-
something that I have better?
A government issued ID, a passport,
RSA secure ID.
a driver's license. These are methods of.
No, if I have something that says
These are
this is
things
my
you can-
DNA or this is my.
Well, someone could fake all those
Yeah,
premises, but not have the token that's been issued to you by the grant.
The token that expires, the
That
token
expires,
that's
that's
revocable,
Yeah.
the token that can be replaced. All of those. So your
It's distinct from you.
sorry, I'm going to skip 2 slides ahead because that's exactly you led into this perfectly right here. Identity, not authentication. So in this case, so who had to cross a border to come here to South by, right? U.S. border. Those are fun, right? In doing so, tell me about that process. The gentleman in the back. What was that process?
What do you mean? I scan my finger, do a picture of my face,
Yes.
my eyes,
Yes. And what else?
I show my passport.
Show your passport. Those 3 things. Anything else, or is that the core? That's the core. Okay. So fingerprints, biometrics, right? The facial thing, more biometrics. Yet another piece of that. The passport is a very, very different thing. It's different at its core to the biometrics. Why? Because your passport expires. It gets replaced. It was issued by a trusted third party, a government, some more trusted than others. Issued by a third party. It has a number, a unique number. It's yours. There's only one copy of that. Now, it's possible to fake, but it's hard to fake. Very hard to fake. Much harder to fake, especially good passports, much harder to fake than a fingerprint, than facial recognition system. It's harder to defeat, especially good quality passports. Now, the IDs, local, state, municipal IDs, library cards, those might be easier to fake than a passport that costs a couple of $100s in modern times. Okay. The important thing though is that passport can be changed. You lose it, you can get a new one. That is all new, and the old one will never be respected anymore. It's put onto the blacklist. Absolutely. Right. So if we look at this image and what's going on here, and you'll recognize this. You scan your fingerprints. They're taking a picture of you, and that is creating a proposal of your identity. I propose that I'm Mike. I propose that I'm Mike because these are my fingerprints and this is my face. Prove to me that you're Mike. Well, here's my government-issued ID. In fact, some things, you go and take out a loan today or something like that, you have to present multiple forms of identification. I went and did the global entry thing. You have to bring multiple forms of identification. That's more factors, and they took my fingerprints and a picture and that sort of thing. But it's biometrics plus authentication, and as much of a pain as it is to cross a border, I think they're doing it right now. At least they're combining those two. Not one alone is enough to gain admission. You need to, even if you do the global entry thing, which is completely automated. You slide your passport, verifies that RFID. You put your fingerprints down. It takes your picture, and then you go through a human and you give them your paperwork, right? But it's still the combination of those two. I'm going to go back 1 slide, but you still look concerned. You're incredulous.
I'm incredulous. So let's postulate that there's a biometric measure that has properties that we naively think a fingerprint has. So it can't be copied. When I use it identifies me distinctly.
Uniquely, yeah.
Now, combine that with a communication system that would be able to then connect with the government that you happen to live and say, yes, this person is a valid citizen and has a visa to travel to this jurisdiction. Isn't that good enough?
Role-based access controls is what you're talking about on the latter end.
Right. So I don't need a token for that.
Right. Can that imaginary bit of data, first of all, can it be changed?
So let's postulate no. So it can't change.
It's not then like definitively it's not a password. It can't be changed. It's not.
No, I understand it's not a password, but can it substitute for that token, for the passport, the driver?
Are you postulating that it cannot be duplicated in any way, as a fingerprint can be?
Right. So say that I could do.
Well,
it's always out of the realm of possibility.
Let's
right?
not talk magically
It's
though. Let's
I'm
not
sorry?
talk magically because they have fingerprint scanners that do the fingerprint, but they do multiple layer fingerprints, including the capillaries, and whether there's blood
This can
flow.
be cracked. Like any other system is going to be cracked here. Like there's
How?
any.
Well, no, there's an infinite cat and mouse.
You're right.
No. But there will always be
This is like
a
doing a
cat and
physics
mouse
problem where
game,
we say
right?
growing air resistance. Like you can't just cut that out of the picture there. Like at every layer of technology, someone has found the technology to surpass that.
Right.
So unless you just postulate magically that there is no way that this is going to take place.
No. I'm just saying that there will always be a way to crack whatever you do.
Anything, right?
Right.
That's the flip side of this. So doesn't it really come down to what are you trying to protect
And how valuable
and how valuable?
It's absolutely
Well,
true.
that's why the spectrum exists. That's why you make certain
Right.
compromises for convenience.
Right.
So then what do you advocate? Full body scan? I mean, serious. No, I'm thinking about it. That's,
Unique organ.
unless you're a 3D printer, right? That's pretty unique and hard to completely replicate, right? You can take your cloth, but to the guy in front of me, I don't know. What would you advocate?
Alex.
Alex, sorry. Nice to meet you. I'm curious, like, what would you advocate in terms of if biometrics are not sufficient and everything that we know today, in terms of slides that have been presented, none of it works.
The premise behind multi-factor is that the circumstances of each one of those elements and acquiring them or faking them is a very different matter.
No, I understand that, but that's not my question. My question is, what do you advocate for security in a world where all the things that the slides that were presented, none of them really truly work, because they all.
None of them really truly work on their own.
That's
the
the
context
and I
is
agree
really
with that.
important, so that human factor, which is why
Absolutely.
all these at the
That-
border,
that's
there's always
why
that one person who asks you a question.
So at
That's
this-
what I'm saying, general purpose biometrics, yes, is a very difficult thing, but if you pair biometrics with a token, and you also pair biometrics and a token with a password, the process of acquisition and cracking those are very different endeavors. So you have to simple through wildly separate means of breaking those, whereas any one of those is incredibly vulnerable, but multiples makes it more secure.
I mean, right now,
One
so
second,
you
one
have
second. Gentleman has something insightful to say.
No pressure.
So it's really not. Greg here with Visa.
Okay.
So here's the thing. So we've worked with many partners, right?
Mhm.
Including we worked with Apple and Apple Pay,
Yep.
what have you, right? So you're using fingerprint. Do you classify that as identity or authentication because of the factor that I'm not having to enter a password in, but we are utilizing Visa's token services at
Yep.
the same time.
And you
So-
have the phone though, so you have the phone and that's two. I'm gonna say that's
That's multi-factor, something you have. So, if you're asking me the question, I'm saying fingerprints and biometrics in general can take care of the identity half, but not the authentication half. And with that, whether it's Visa or it's your phone or it's your laptop, your login, there's still some secret part that you enter as well. Maybe it's a 4-digit PIN, maybe it's a word or passphrase or something like that.
The interesting problem with that though too is that so it would be akin to use Apple Pay, so there's something you know.
Mhm.
But the problem is once you establish that, you don't even know anymore. You just need the phone and the print.
Right. So when I go up to kiosks, all I do is pop my phone up, credit card pops up, my fingerprint on there.
Well, awesome. I can just take your phone, steal it from you, and now I've got your fingerprint and your phone. Boom, I'm in.
So,
Literally,
that's always
Taking his credit card.
But that has an expiration on it. At some
Right.
point, you report your phone stolen,
I think
and maybe some damage happened. But at some point, you say this phone is invalid. Revoke that token, and I'll get a new one. And that's an expensive and a pain in the butt, but you can do that. You can't change your fingerprints, you can't change your iris, you can't change those things. You can replace your phone. I'm not an Apple Pay user, this isn't, I'm not endorsing that, but I think that's the right, I think it's the right approach. Maybe I am endorsing that, but I didn't mean to.
That sounded a little like.
Well, that's fine. I think that like in thinking through it right now on the fly, the phone is something that can be revoked. You can log out of that, I presume, right?
But so my phone would be off. I'd go up to it. My credit card would pop up. It would ask me, and then point my finger and done.
Right.
Right. I'm not entering the password to enter into my phone because we use fingerprints to enter your phone.
Right, right.
So when Brian steals your phone,
And my finger.
and you
No, he needs a gummy
It's
bear.
actually on today.
Something that you can.
I just lost my phone. This actually just happened to me. I had Apple Pay on my phone. And so the first thing I did was I went home and I said, wipe my phone. And
Yes.
it's not going to connect to anything. And by the way, the second I did that, even before my phone connected, Apple Pay said, we're breaking this connection. Your credit card is no longer connected.
So maybe the beauty of this is that many people don't have to understand, but the security technologists in the room have to understand that the important part isn't the fingerprint there. The important part is that 512-bit token or whatever that's inside of the Apple Pay, inside of the phone, that can go away, that is just an ID, an index in a database somewhere that can be wiped away. And to the unwashed public, they're swiping their finger and everything's good. But the important part is that it's not the finger swipe that's important. It's that unlocks some secret key that is then used. And in fact, we haven't even talked about public-private key authentication, but a much better way of doing all of this is instead of giving up your secret every time, like you do right here, your secret being your passport, you're actually presented with a challenge response. Here, sign this if you have the correct private key. Oh, look, I can verify the signature. Maybe that's a little deep for where we're going right now.
I think we have some hope for the adaptive technology, and I think we're not thinking out of the box so much. How about mannerisms? How about you have to do something very out of the ordinary physical to validate your ID? So let's say, just as an example, you wake up in the morning, right, and you have a lock on your door, and you say, okay, well, I'm going to set a password today where, one, it'll go ahead and recognize my face, and that's like your username, right?
Yeah.
Since that can be replicated and whatnot. But how about the edits to your face to where you're doing something? So like, let's say you put your tongue right under your upper lip, right? And you swipe that across, right? That's a motion that is very, very... I think that's very, very hard to replicate. I think that's very hard to replicate if it's something...
Are you presuming that it's uniquely your tongue running across the
It is something so out of the ordinary that you wouldn't do anywhere else that it's very hard to replicate.
Through your window in the morning and watches you do that gesture, and then they know that gesture, unless it's verifiably your lip and tongue, then anyone can do that thing. It's no better than any biometric.
Yeah, but it's going through the motion too.
No, but here's the other thing. So I have a sister who's 4 years older than I. Okay, we happen to both have red hair. People see two redheads. I don't know why they think we're twins. Let's be clear, she's older. What people will always say is you talk like you have the same mannerisms. Yeah.
Do you not think hire an actress looking reasonably similar to you to walk next to you, and that on any given night you could copy a few mannerisms and people would assume the same thing?
Well, right, but that's my point. Is like, okay, mannerisms don't do it.
Yeah, I know.
But I'm saying it's something that you can change as well. If you think that it's compromised, it's something that you can just completely do something else.
What I like about that idea is if no one else knows your funny face you make, and it's something that over time you can say, okay, I'm going to change my funny face to this, presuming you have blinds on your windows. But at that point, that's not biometrics. That's back to being like a secret. That's the equivalent of a passphrase. It's something you know that no one else knows.
But there could be, if it is known, replicated.
Sure, everything can be done.
That's the category.
Hard to replicate, right? It's hard to replicate a passport, right? I'm sure there's some Russian mafia that you can go to and buy a passport off of someone that's been kidnapped. We even have a price tag for it. But it's hard to replicate. Much harder than the non-adaptive technologies. There was a question, a comment?
I mean, this is great on from the marketing side, so
Okay.
these technology debates. But
Yes.
I think, we miss the consumer. Like, I trust Visa and Apple with a lot of thought that what we're missing is like the vulnerabilities that are going to be exposed by getting this out into the marketplace are going to be what moves it along.
Sure.
So I think it is important to poke the holes in it, but it's so much better than what it is. If you apply for a mortgage, you're still authenticating on a social security number,
Right.
and they're asking you questions about your resume, which is available on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I just think there's a huge issue of like there's all these different like regulations and different companies that are applying it, and I think these debates are really important. But we have to start somewhere, and it's going so much further than where it is now. I think you have to have consumers start getting used to this, and stopping the innovation by all of these 10% of an outlier is like going to stop the innovation that we need to see in the market.
Right. So that's great. I like that, and I've got a couple of slides on social security numbers. I'm glad you broached that subject. One more comment, then I'm going to.
It came in late, but I don't know if you covered this.
Okay.
But I know that the police are allowed to now, for court cases, compel you to give fingerprints or biometrics, but they can't compel passwords.
Man, you just stole the last slide. That's the last slide I have here. So I tell you what, we're not going to end with a bang. We're just gonna hit the bang right now.
So when you're pulled over, turn your phone off. Because you have to put in your password and they can't compel you to do that. Thank you very much.
So I think that's important. There's a couple of things here. I want to get back to SSNs, but the Fifth Amendment. So there is some debate, but there's at least 2 court cases in the last 2 years. One, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, and one, a magistrate judge in Wisconsin, have both ruled that a suspect, I'm not going to call him guilty or not, but a suspect cannot be forced to give up a password. Fingerprints, absolutely. We give up fingerprints all the time. And all the rest of the biometrics, I think, are just, the court thinks, are all just interpretations of the same thing. A password is very different. And this is very different from like the marketing speak. So here we're talking civil liberties and privacy, which is another focus of this South by Southwest interactive track. The greater track. I've only got a couple of comments on civil liberties. But passwords are very different than that. There's something that it's self-incriminating. Taking the bad guys aside, we have this thing called the Bill of Rights, that without which we're not America, and without the Fifth Amendment, we don't have a Bill of Rights. So like it or not, that this being a good guy or a bad guy, there is a Fifth Amendment that we've had for 200 and something years that says that you cannot be forced to testify against yourself, essentially. Giving up a password might be that, and you can plead the Fifth. Now, they can get you on a lot of other grounds, but giving up that password, at least in the United States, is protected under the Fifth Amendment. That is not true for biometrics. So if you're considering biometrics as a way of protecting yourself, you may not be protecting yourself against your own government. Sorry, that's heavy, and that was where we were going to end. But
just incidentally, even in the UK, that's not the case. So you can be coerced
into password. Is that recently established?
It was the precedent was it was actually to do with the Snowden case. So it was might be wrong, but I believe it was the boyfriend of one of the Guardian journalists who covered the story. No, the UK journalist. Oh, was that? Yeah. Right, so I think he was arrested at Heathrow and was taken into a room and coerced into giving over his Facebook credentials, and then it was challenged and it was upheld.
Yep. So
quite out.
To me, that's a little scary. I mean, you need to know and understand your rights. You can be asked, hey, give me your password. You can be shaken down, hey, you better give me your password. But you should be able to be protected under the Constitution if I plead the Fifth. I'm not giving that. I need my lawyer.
But employers are doing it. They're asking for kids' Facebook passwords for jobs so they want to go on with their Facebook posts.
Yeah.
You can ask for it.
I would definitely plead the Fifth.
Right, but
that could make it conditional.
So then,
clarify because this is a really big point. Maybe it's a little bit of track. How then are companies like Twitter and Facebook who compel their Patriot Act to release information about users that are clearly tied to?
They're not private citizens. They're organizations that you can publicly as well as operate on. Now there's still a gray area, but I think the difference between a private citizen and a corporation I think there's different rights.
It's not their password.
Yeah. Could be part of the user agreement. Yeah.
You know, it's just like, the thing is that the law is like, it's really great to say, oh, well, we've got this Bill of Rights stuff. The law just like blows whichever way the wind blows, and on whatever day, with whatever judge, with whatever. I mean, and I guess, but getting back to your point, you're just saying that a multi-pronged approach is the best approach.
Yes.
Right?
Because you can be forced to give up a number of these things, but giving up the password is one that you have that right, at least so far has been tested in the court. You have the right to withhold that password.
Are there 3 prongs or just 2?
There's 3. There's something you have, something you are, and something you know. And actually, we should probably start.
Is your like fingerprint?
No, sorry. Something you are.
See that? And that's where I'm not sure.
Wait a second, I just want to clarify.
Something you have is
Sure.
replaceable.
Something you have to replace is something you are is like your fingerprint.
Yeah.
Sure.
And something you know is
A password.
Which is changeable.
But also
the
replaceable,
document, the password.
Yeah, so
Some documents can be photocopied, but the password you would know. So it doesn't necessarily have the physical.
So something you have might be something like this. A little token. That is a thing that can be replaced, but I have this. There's only one of these. I have it. It stays with me. If I lose it, I revoke it and say anything that was tied to this thing is now gone, and so you can remove that, right? So this is the have. Something you are could be a biometric. It could be a fingerprint, a face. You can't revoke that one, so that's why that one is never okay by itself, or never good enough all by itself. Something you know would be a password, a passphrase that isn't on this. It's only here, and it's ideally not something that I ever give away. Cool.
And increasingly, we think of security in layers, much like a multifactor approach. And it's never foolproof. I mean, there's obviously some elements of this. But increasingly, what we're seeing is a 4th factor, actually. That's what we do.
Oh, interesting.
And it's the trigger that, like Visa, would use when your credit card gets turned off. And you realize that and you fraudulent.
That's very interesting. Wow, that's great. Should update the Wikipedia page on multi-factor authentication. That's great. I'm going to spend some time thinking about that.
To add to that from a marketing perspective, because I'm on the marketing side, so I'm learning a lot from the technical side. But I think that maybe the best defense is a good offense, right? So the things that you can change,
Yes.
and you can change quickly,
Yes.
the more quickly you understand that you can compromise, the more quickly you can turn off change. And so we haven't even talked about some of the instances where we've been alerted, but we haven't even talked about those things, which is where you own a lot of the power, like as the person who could be offered.
Right. That's great. And taking a proactive approach. I've actually got a slide or two on that. Let me jump back to this slide.
Or the flip side, which is like the panic code in the security system, right? You punch in a different thing to help with.
That's right. Panic code, yeah. So getting back to the core premise, you've all logged into your desktop, be that Windows or Mac or an Ubuntu or Linux or something like that. On all of these, they're all exactly the same. And that the first thing you do is you say who you are. What is your username? What is your username? What is your username? And that's the point at which a biometrics would make some sense, right? Establish who you claim to be. I asked Mike, so what's your name? Mike. Prove it to me, right? Now, he'd prove it to me in that example with a government-issued ID. And if we both trust that government, I'd go, this match is good. You're good enough to be Mike in this case, right? To get into here, it's a matter of entering your password, that thing that you know, right? But it's the combination of the two. Using just one, maybe it's fine on your kids' iPad so they can play Angry Birds or something like that, right? But certainly not, I certainly wouldn't put my Visa Apple Pay on the kid's laptop or the kid's iPad that can play Angry Birds, and that can then be used, right? But in this case, it's that combination. So going back to that bug that was filed, the whole premise to why I was talking about this, I would never replace this thing, the password with the biometrics, but I would replace the first thing. I think that's perfectly reasonable, and that's just the same thing that happened when you walked up to the border patrol and he said, "Hey, how are you doing today? What's your name?" That's essentially what he asked, but he sat there grumpy and took your passport from you. But there's this moment where that's exactly what happened right there. But logging into a desktop is actually something we do maybe every once in a while, once a day. The thing that we do all of the time now is log into third-party services, right? Google or Twitter, and I'll get to Social Security in a second, but, pick your favorite app. They're all going to ask you for the first thing, who do you propose that you are? And in Google, that's an email address, and Twitter, that's a handle. But they're all still also asking for a password. As these sites start getting biometrically aware, I just hope that those biometrics are tied to that first field and not to that second field. Yes, ma'am.
So, but in essence, isn't knowing on the security too? I guess a lot of
Very lightweight piece, right? Very lightweight. I have my Twitter handle on my slide deck here, right? Twitter's not worth much if your Twitter handle is secret, right? But that's fine. That's back to the biometrics. Your biometrics is everywhere. Probably. Hopefully. That actually, though, is a great lead into Social Security. That's a great issue. That's a great lead into Social Security, right? Who here thinks their Social Security number is secret? It's not. Can we quit pretending that it is? I mean, the fact that anything is tied to the secrecy of your Social Security number is a major failure, and maybe one of the most important things to understand when we're talking about this. They're not secret, right? They're just not. There've been too many breaches. You're asked for it all the time. Think about how many people you've given your Social Security number to over the phone. You have no reason to trust them. You've never met them. They're one person in a call center somewhere, and that's like the key to your credit history or something like that. Can we please take Social Security numbers out of the secret realm and put it back into the biometrics public realm? I mean, not that you should publish your Social Security number on your blog or something, but just don't pretend like it is a secret, right? From a marketing perspective, it's just...
They only ask for the last four.
So where, aside from public perception, where is Social Security number still used as a secret?
There's a lot of places that think it is.
But they don't rely just on that.
So that's what I mean. It's not right. So again, I'm lumping Social Security into the biometrics realm, and that it's kind of tied to your identity, but it's not the authentication. It doesn't prove who you are. I went to college 20 years ago, but at the time, our Social Security numbers were slapped on the professor's door with our grade every single time, in a small honors class of 4, it's like, oh, I bet, okay, that one starts with a 5, so they're probably from Virginia. Mine starts with a, someone starts with a 4, Louisiana. Great, you know the other 4 people. Back to the last 4 digits, right? But sure, great, you gave me your last 4. The first 3, if I know your age and where you were born, are guessable, and then there's 2, right? I got 99 other ones I need to try. Social Security numbers are just, they're not secret, and the sooner we quit pretending like they are, and I say we as a technology and an industry, the better off the entire country will be.
So I worked on a project recently that was actually trying to build trust with users that is super secure, and they were asking for the last 4, not because they were going to do anything with it, but because that they felt that made them look legitimate.
Right.
Can I level down on the password?
Sure.
Because you're saying that you're a very good, or one of the best ways of authentication, right?
Passwords.
Passwords.
Okay.
Okay. So the thing is that now in password, sometimes I can call it password hell.
Oh, absolutely.
Because first of all, they suggest you don't use the same password.
Absolutely
for
not.
everything. So then you have multiple passwords.
Yes.
Then if you haven't been to then I don't know. It's saving.
So let me.
Wait a second. Well, so the thing is that I'm trying to ascertain whether saving a password on a site is a good thing or not. Because apparently it's only saved to your computer if you're saving a password.
Depends on how you do it. Okay.
All right. So is that a good thing or not? And then the second thing is that what are the ways you can protect yourself with passwords? Should you be using a different one every time? Should you change them periodically? Should you make them you know, should you pay attention to that little bar that says weak, better,
Right.
strong, stronger?
So I've actually got a slide on that advice. This is perfect. I had a couple of plants in the audience who would ask me the question that talks straight to the slide. So I do have some advice on that point. Here are what I think are best practices. First of all, encrypt your data, all of it, regardless of the operating system or the phone or the tablet you use. It's painful, but encrypt it, and that's going to protect you from the good guys and the bad guys, right?
What does that mean? When you, I mean, is that when you take your Mac and you choose the encryption mode?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that when you take like an VPN when you're on the internet? Is that what you?
That's a different level of encryption, but yes, and that should be done for you automatically. Using HTTPS with your employer, they should have VPNs. If they don't, then get a new employer. So personally, your endpoints should have an HTTPS at the front of what you're fundamentally talking to. If you're running your own services and you are the type, you're going to use an SSH or you're going to use a tunnel or something like that. More importantly, what I'm talking about is the data that's on your physical device. Thankfully, in 2015, every major phone or tablet or desktop system will have an encryption system. It should be as easy as a checkbox, leave it plugged in overnight, let it do its thing. You'll now be prompted for a password or something to log in. But what that does, it protects you from the bad guy. Someone steals your phone or your laptop. It protects you from the good guys, maybe a bad acting government or something like that. Makes it harder for them. It also protects you in a completely benign case of, look, this is old and I don't want it anymore. I'm going to donate it to Phones for Soldiers or something like that. If you haven't encrypted that data, man, where is that phone going? Drop it off at Goodwill. If it's encrypted, revoke the key, and now what you're giving them is a perfectly usable device where your data is protected. But we've got people have stacks of phones and tablets and laptops and computers that, man, you might just have some important information lying. So encrypt it, and that helps. Now, on the password front, I recommend having 2 or 3 really good long passwords, the hard ones to memorize, the song lyrics, the 15 or 20 characters replace. You need a couple of those, and you only use them in 1 or 2 places, mainly to encrypt your data. Everything else, randomly generate everything else, and there's multiple tools that'll do it. I'm in the Linux world, and so I've got probably very different tools than you might use in a Windows or Mac world. There's LastPass. There are utilities that will randomly generate, but every single site needs to have its own randomly generated password. I use 20 characters, capitals, lowercase, and numbers. I probably should do symbols, but at 20 characters, I'm over 128 bits of randomness in 20 characters of 62. It's 2 to the 62 is a big. So that is encrypted. So great question. So all those passwords are in a flat file that's encrypted using GPG. I use asymmetric encryption to encrypt that file. Asymmetric GPG encryption, which itself has a password on it. It's a wrapping password for a 4096-bit key. That's on a file that's local on my laptop. That file is stored in eCrypt FS, which is a cryptographic file system that protects my data from other users on that system. That eCrypt FS file system is sitting on a block-level encrypted file system called Encrypt, and that encrypts me down to the metal. Okay. The SSD also has onboard encryption that, should the device get separated from the laptop, will be unusable. That's multiple levels. I'm a security professional. I'm leading by example. Let's say. What can you do? Excuse me.
The average office.
The average office user use a LastPass or something like that. Keep a good password for LastPass, a good password for your desktop. Those should never be the same thing. And then randomly generate everything else. Copy and paste it. As far as saving passwords I think is perfectly safe as long as those passwords are saved locally in the Chrome or the Firefox or the locally in the browser, and you're doing encryption on the device. What I don't like doing, I don't use a LastPass because I'm not going to send even my encrypted passwords up to a third-party service. I'm not going to use Chrome's save all my data or Firefox to save all my data either. But I perfectly trust it on my laptop. encrypt it 3 times locally here. And if I lose my laptop, I know I've lost it. I'll start changing things. I have a backup copy of that into a secure place. But that's my approach.
So you don't trust 1Password's asymmetric public and private key stuff, because they store the key on your own personal Dropbox, and then you can access it from multiple platforms.
That's great. That's fine. Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. That's perfectly fine.
I have a problem with actually in theory you can always have authenticate this new upcase and upcase. But
Yeah.
in that case, this is a reality. I have over 30 passwords.
Yes, I've got 270.
So you can just remember this.
No, you can't remember that. That's absolutely. And I think if you try to remember them, you're hurting yourself.
So you have to get a famous phone rather than just get a family. You cannot remember all of them.
Nope. I'm suggesting you remember 2 or 3 really long good ones, and you randomly generate and encrypt all the rest inside of a file or a database or a storage service.
Do they have to be very, very different?
Yes.
Yeah.
People aren't understanding what you mean by black hat.
It's a password manager.
Right.
Okay, guys, to the crowd.
Sorry. To your password, they make you establish what you're doing this for. Like the value of detecting is a good question, right? Like you go to the airport, you sign up with Blingo or whatever, you take your credit card and you have to save it. Is that password dealing?
How often do you use that password though?
Exactly. Once a year.
These are the passwords that I've got. My automatic password generator is a little wrapper I have. These are what those passwords come out looking like. They're 20 characters. I can't remember that. I've got 280 of these. Now I have to adjust this sometimes because some site's going to say, oh, it needs to be 16 or it can only be 8, and then I'm like,
But you never have to type those.
no, I copy and paste them. I copy and paste them in. I will save them in my browser as long as that's done locally. But yeah, and it's a little bit of a pain. You know, my wife wants access to the drop cam, and I've changed the passwords, and I've got to go and type this in. Kim will appreciate that.
Well, that's like nothing ever gets stolen from him.
Yeah.
Really scary.
Just change your 120 passwords.
So I also keep a timestamp of the last time I changed it, so I'll know like how often. Generally, I'm not concerned when I get one of those emails that says Sony's been broken into. I'm like, great. So I've got one password I need to change for Sony. I'll update the timestamp that says, you know, I've adjusted that one password. I can also like at any time query and go, wow, I haven't changed this one since 2009. I should probably update that.
I read somewhere that I guess, and it has to do with the government, that they had some sort of algorithm that can test like something ridiculous amount of
Absolutely.
within 10 minutes. Like
Absolutely.
passes within 10 minutes.
Oh,
I'm sitting here thinking, what's
trillions. It's astronomical. You have to have a lot of trust on the back-end designers to have salted and encrypted and hashed your passwords. So there's technology. We can go into details about that in a few minutes.
So you're not really protecting yourself against the malicious government, but you might be protecting yourself against hackers. I mean, are hackers as sophisticated as the government?
Some are. The proverbial Russian mob, yes. The which may have government ties. I don't know. This. Yeah. So 20 characters, upper, lower, and numbers is an astronomical number that would take is impractical to crack. Even 8 or 12 makes it very, very difficult. 20 should make it virtually impossible. You can't build a rainbow table that big if they're salting it properly.
You said 12?
12 is okay. 12 is okay.
You don't have anything that important? You're good to go.
So I want to leave with one other point that is entirely not related to biometrics at all. But while we're fear mongering and like getting worried about things that you should be worried about, I think this is probably one of the things that everyone should be more worried about than they even know, which is never plug your phone into a random USB port. Free charging, or like even the airplane or whatever, where you just charge your phone. First of all, have you ever plugged?
It's attached to a computer versus just.
So I'll get into the 2 ways to protect yourself, but have you ever plugged your phone into your laptop, right?
Yeah.
And then what do? You download all your pictures, right? On your phone, were you ever asked, hey, your computer would like to download your pictures?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Some phones don't ask that. Some phones don't ask that question. Moreover, it's also possible to push data. USB is a two-way directional communication mechanism. You can put malicious data onto a device. In fact, if you turn your phone into developer mode, you can replace the entire operating system on it. So do not plug your phone into a random USB port. Okay, R2D2 learned this when C3PO says jack into Bespin's city computer, and he does, and he goes, oh wait, that was a power socket, I didn't know, right? You don't know what you're plugging into. So there's two ways. There's two ways of protecting yourself. One is you can buy a power-only cable. So there are cables that do not do data. They're $5 or $10 on Amazon. Find that. They're usually red. I think there's sort of an informal convention of making those red and normal USB cables, other colors. That may not always hold, but the ones I have are always red. Use that if you're going to plug in to charge your phone. And then there's also this little device, it's called a USB condom, where you plug your USB into that, and you plug that in, and it just filters out the data and keeps the data from going back and forth. But
is that what it's really called? Like if I go search on that?
USB condom on Amazon.
Find out if they want that in your search
I'm sorry, but if you use a regular plug, is that different?
Yeah, a regular plug into the wall is perfectly fine.
The one that goes the USB into the plug, into the...
Right. A plug into the wall is...
You're okay. Like if you have the connector.
Yes. If you're plugging into AC on the wall, it's perfectly fine. The places to be worried about is the free charging stations around here. Even like plugging into the plane. You know how buggy that software is that runs the entertainment system on the plane?
You can control the plane, it's great.
I do not want to be on a plane with this guy. Yes, ma'am.
So, two questions, they relate to cars.
Okay.
So more and more cars have USB plugs in them.
Right.
Okay. And I can see how in my car, which happens to have an internet connection in it, right, this potentially could be a problem. Yes, but if somebody else. But if I take that car to be, if I take that car to be serviced, let me be clear.
Yeah.
And I don't, it's a Tesla, so it's a connected car, right? If I take that into the service, and I'm using those I'm just asking, and I'm using those USB ports to connect. Is there a two-way mechanism in a car, whether it be something that's connected like a Tesla versus a rental car now that instead of having to charge via the cigarette, right, they have USB ports in them. Is there a concern with cars?
I think it's all about measuring your own risk tolerance, honestly. Your own car, you trust it to get from A to B, and that the brakes weren't disabled the last time you brought it into B.
I know, but I'm just wondering.
But a rental car, I agree, is a very different premise, you know?
But even if your own car, because you have an information gathering system in your car. So in other words, insurance companies are downloading how fast it goes.
I know that. So my question. The question is in a rental car.
Yeah. I would never plug my phone into a rental car.
Okay, that's my question.
Yeah, absolutely. Power only, like one of the power only cables. But I would never let me stream my MP3s and upload all my pictures into this compromise.
So my question is whether a rental car could be hacked.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Because my question to you to follow up on that is that if they have that system with an OnStar, they can take all your information of what your car is doing, how it's speeding. If you plug your phone in, could that be a connection that could
That was my point about Tesla. Because the reality is Tesla is so far beyond OnStar, it's ridiculous. In terms of what they're tracking, if you go back, and this is a kind of, if you go back 2 years ago, the New York Times tested a Tesla that they, in terms of its mileage and how much you get, right? And the way that Tesla defended itself is it exposed itself and said, look, read the laws. We know that the car wasn't fully charged, So Tesla is so far beyond what I'm starting to do and track. I know what's going on.
We've got 60 seconds left. Let's hit a couple of...
Just to throw this out there into the mix of all this whole connected car thing. So we just recently did some at Pizza Hut where you have your credit card built into your connected car. You roll up to Pizza Hut, it's already paid for via Beacon, they pick you up, and then you just walk in and grab your pizza. go, or they walk out and bring it to you. So now just throw that into there. Now all your credit cards are going to be into your card.
Yeah.
So just add that into the mixture.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So I mean, you displayed your passwords and it's lovely, but I think about my mother who has maybe one password that she doesn't remember and has me remember what it is for her and change it for her every month. But I mean, biometrics and all these security could be getting easier. I understand that it's hard, but like besides us geeks here who have a good grasp on, yeah, you shouldn't write it on a piece of paper and put it in your pocket and hand out the same password everywhere. But I mean, I feel like there's not an effort to make security easier.
Great point. So I've always looked at security as a spectrum, where usability is on the left side and hyper-security is on the right side. It's a matter of picking the right place on that spectrum you want to be. So getting into Fort Knox would be on one end, and your mother or grandmother might be on another end from a usability standpoint. It's all about risk mitigation. How risky is looking at from a compromise standpoint. And it may be more or less than someone else.
Especially